So I had ChatGPT write me a script on the history of the Philippines. Let's get into it. I'm Mike and welcome back to my channel. The story of the Philippines begins long before written history, in a time when early humans crossed land bridges and seas to reach what would become the most culturally diverse nations in Asia. Archaeological evidence shows that people lived in the Philippines at least 40,000 years ago, with the discovery of the Kalao man in Luzon reshaping what historians believed about early migration. Over thousands of years, waves of Austronesian settlers arrived by boat, bringing farming, fishing, seafaring skills, and social structures that still influence Filipino culture today. Before foreign powers ever arrived, the islands were already home to thriving communities known as barangays. These small, independent settlements were led by chieftains called datas, and society was structured around kinship, trade, and shared traditions. Filipinos traded with China, Japan, India, and the Arab world, exchanging gold, pearls, spices, and textiles. Islam reached the southern Philippines in the 14th century, particularly in Mindanao and the Sulu archipelago, establishing powerful Muslim sultanates long before Christianity arrived. Everything changed in 1521 when Portuguese explorer Ferdinand Magellan arrived in the Philippines while sailing under the Spanish flag. Magellan's expedition marked the beginning of Spanish involvement, though his death at the Battle of Mactan at the hands of local leader Lapu Lapu symbolized early resistance to foreign rule. Despite this setback, Spain returned decades later and formally colonized the islands in 1565, naming them Las Islas Filipinas after King Philip II of Spain. Spanish rule would last for more than 300 years, deeply shaping Filipino identity. Catholicism spread rapidly and became a unifying force across the islands, while Spanish influence transformed language, education, architecture, and governance. Churches, plazas, and stone fortresses were built, many of which still stand today. However, Spanish colonization also brought forced labor, heavy taxation, and strict social hierarchies that favored Spanish elites and local collaborators over ordinary Filipinos. By the 19th century, ideas of nationalism and reform began to take root. Educated Filipinos known as ilustrados studied abroad and were exposed to liberating ideas sweeping Europe. One of the most influential figures of this area was José Rizal, whose novels exposed abuses under Spanish rule and awakened national consciousness. Although Rizal advocated peaceful reform, his execution in 1896 ignited widespread anger and helped spark the Philippine Revolution. The revolution against Spain was led by groups like Katipunan, founded by Andrés Bonifacio. Filipino revolutionaries fought for independence, and in 1898, after Spain's defeat in the Spanish-American War, revolutionary leader Emilio Aguinaldo, hope I'm saying that right, declared Philippine independence. However, this moment of victory was short-lived. Spain transferred control of the Philippines to the United States under the Treaty of Paris, effectively replacing one colonial ruler for another. The Philippine-American War soon followed, as Filipinos resisted American occupation. The conflict was brutal and costly, resulting in hundreds of thousands of Filipino deaths. By 1902, the United States had largely secured control, ushering in a new colonial era. Unlike Spain, the Americans introduced public education, democratic institutions, and infrastructure projects, but ultimate authority remained in American hands. Over the next several decades, Filipinos gradually gained greater self-governance. The Commonwealth of the Philippines was established in 1935 with Manuel Quezon as president, setting the stage for eventual independence. But history took another dramatic turn in 1941 when Japan invaded the Philippines during World War II. The occupation was marked by extreme hardship, atrocities, and resistance movements across the country. The Philippines was liberated in 1945, but not without devastation. Manila had become one of the most heavily damaged cities of World War II. In 1946, the United States officially granted independence to the Philippines, making it the first country in Southeast Asia to gain independence after the war. The new republic faced enormous challenges, including rebuilding the economy, addressing inequality, and defining its national identity. Post-independence politics were turbulent. While democracy was established, the Philippines faced new challenges. In 1972, President Ferdinand Marcos declared martial law, citing threats from communists and unrest. What followed was more than a decade of authoritarian rule marked by censorship and human rights abuses. Although infrastructure projects were promoted, the country's debt and poverty deepened. In 1986, millions of Filipinos took to the streets in a peaceful uprising known as the People Power Revolution. The movement led to the downfall of Marcos and restored democracy under President Corazon Aquino. This moment became a defining chapter in Philippine history, showing the power of collective action and reinforcing the nation's democratic ideals. Since then, the Philippines has continued to evolve, facing challenges such as political instability, economic inequality, natural disasters, and globalization. At the same time, it has emerged as a nation with a strong global presence, fueled by overseas Filipino workers, a growing digital economy, and a vibrant culture that blends indigenous, Asian, Spanish, and American influences. Today, the Philippines stands as a nation shaped by resilience. Its history is one of adaptation, resistance, and survival through colonization, war, dictatorship, and change. Understanding the past helps explain the Filipino spirit, deeply rooted in community, fiercely independent, and constantly striving for a better future. And as the Philippines moves forward, its long and complex history continues to guide where it's headed next. Well, that's going to wrap up this video. Thanks for watching. Please remember to subscribe and like this video because it'll help grow this channel. Also, remember to click or tap the bell notification because then you'll be alerted to future videos. God bless and peace out.